Dr. Elara Chen had never expected to be humanity's last hope for peace. As the shuttle's engines wind down to a low hum, she stared through the viewport at the alien landscape of Somnus Prime, a world of towering crystal formations that glittered under the light of a distant blue star. The crystalline structures pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, creating an otherworldly tapestry of light and shadow that seemed to breathe with life. Landing sequence complete, Ambassador, announced the AI pilot. Local atmospheric composition is within human tolerance ranges, though I recommend limited exposure until we have completed full analysis. Elara nodded, her throat tight. Thank you, Arya. She pulled her gaze from the viewport and checked the neural interface circlet resting on her lap. The culmination of 3 years of intensive research and the reason she'd been chosen for this mission. Delicate filaments of quantum-entangled material glinted in the cabin light. Captain Rourke's face appeared on the communication screen. Ambassador Chen, the Morpheus is maintaining high orbit as agreed. You have 72 hours before we are forced to take alternative measures. His expression was grim. The Joint Chiefs are running out of patience. I understand, Captain. Elara kept her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach, but reminded Joint Chiefs that the Somnii haven't made any overtly hostile moves. Their ships simply appeared in our orbital defense networks and shut down our systems. No loss of life, no direct attacks. They disabled half of Earth's defense grid without firing a shot, Doctor. The brass calls that an act of war. Elara sighed, and I call it a possible attempt at communication. The Somnii's technological capabilities clearly outstrip ours by centuries. If they wanted us dead, we would be. The captain's jaw tightened. 72 hours, Ambassador. Make them count. The screen went dark. 3 days to prevent an interstellar war with a species that had never responded to any conventional form of communication. Not radio signals, not light patterns, not mathematical sequences. The Somnii had simply appeared 4 months ago, their massive ships materializing near Earth's orbital defense stations. When humanity's military had responded with defensive posturing, the aliens had effortlessly disabled our systems, then maintained position. The only clue to their intentions had come from the strange dreams that had begun plaguing residents of Earth's largest cities. Vivid, shared experiences of alien landscapes and incomprehensible entities. The correlation hadn't been noticed until Elara, a xenolinguist specializing in nonverbal communication systems, had published her controversial theory. The dreams weren't a side effect of the aliens' presence. They were the communication. 6 weeks later, a Somnii vessel had transmitted coordinates to a previously uncharted world. The message was clear: come talk, or we will assume hostility. Elara secured the neural interface in its protective case and rose from her seat. Her legs felt unsteady, whether from the slightly lower gravity or her own anxiety. She couldn't tell. Arya, maintain communication protocols, but go into low-power mode. I'm not sure how the Somnii will react to active AI systems. Understood, Ambassador. Good luck. Elara checked her environmental suit, a precaution despite the breathable atmosphere, and cycled through the airlock. As the outer door slid open, she was struck by the absolute silence of Somnus Prime. No wind, no animals, no rustling vegetation. Just crystalline structures stretching to the horizon, pulsing with that strange inner light. She had taken only 3 steps onto the alien soil when she heard it, a soft, melodic humming that seemed to emanate from the crystals themselves. The sound resonated in her chest, sending shivers down her spine. The nearest formation, a spiral column of translucent blue crystal, pulsed more intensely. Approaching cautiously, Elara extended a gloved hand. The humming increased in pitch, and to her astonishment, the crystal bent toward her like a plant seeking sunlight. When it made contact with her suit, a jolt of electricity ran through her body, and the neural interface in her case emitted a high-pitched whine. "Hello," she whispered, though she knew verbal communication was likely meaningless here. "I'm Ambassador Elara Chen, representing Earth." The crystal's pulsing intensified, and suddenly, Elara felt lightheaded. The landscape around her seemed to waver, and a profound exhaustion washed over her. "They want me to sleep," she realized with sudden clarity. Of course, fighting her instincts, she returned to the shuttle and sealed the airlock. With trembling hands, she removed her environmental suit and retrieved the neural interface. Arya, monitor my vital signs. If they become critical, wake me immediately. Ambassador, I must advise against. Just do it, Arya. This is why I'm here. Elara reclined on the shuttle's small bunk and placed the neural interface on her head. Its filaments adjusted automatically, establishing contact with her cerebral cortex. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and surrendered to the exhaustion that had been pulling at her consciousness. Sleep came swiftly, and with it, the dreams. She stood in an ocean of light, not submerged in water, but in something more fundamental, a primordial soup of consciousness itself. Colors that had no names in human language swirled around her, forming patterns that resonated with meaning she could almost, but not quite, grasp. And she was not alone. They moved through the light like dancers, sinuous forms that constantly shifted, never settling on a single shape. Sometimes they appeared almost humanoid, with limbs and what might be heads. Other times they resembled nothing from Earth's evolutionary history, geometric impossibilities that hurt to look at directly. The Somnii. Elara felt no fear, only wonder. The neural interface was working, translating the dream language into something her human mind could process without shutting down from the sheer alienness of it all. She tried to communicate, projecting thoughts of peace and cooperation. The Somnii responded, their forms shifting more rapidly. Elara felt an overwhelming sensation of curiosity. They were studying her, trying to understand this strange, solid being that had invaded their realm of thought. Images flashed through her mind. Earth seen from orbit, human cities, military installations. The destruction of a planet that was definitely not Earth, its surface cracking apart to reveal a molten core before exploding into fragments. Elara recoiled in horror, projecting questions. Is this a threat? Why show me this? The Somnii's response came as a flood of emotions rather than words. Confusion, then something like regret, then urgent concern. More images, Earth's defense systems activating, missiles launching, Somnii ships retaliating with devastating force. Understanding dawned. They weren't threatening Earth, they were warning her. Something about Earth's defense systems had triggered their intervention. They had disabled the networks to prevent. What? An accidental launch? A miscalculation? Elara concentrated, focusing on images of herself talking with Earth's military leaders, the deactivation of whatever systems concerned the Somnii, peaceful coexistence. The dream ocean pulsed with approval, but then darker currents swirled through it. New images formed. Humans and Somnii attempting to interact, but the humans collapsing, their minds unable to withstand direct contact. The Somnii existed primarily as thought patterns, their physical forms merely vessels for a consciousness that operated on principles human biology had never evolved to comprehend. That we need an interface, Elara realized. A way to communicate without direct neural contact. She focused on her neural circlet, trying to convey its purpose and potential. The Somnii responded with interest, their forms drawing closer. Elara felt a pressure in her mind as they examined the technology through her understanding of it. Then, abruptly, she was falling, the dream ocean receding around her. Elara gasped awake, her heart pounding. The neural interface was hot against her skin, its diagnostic lights flashing in patterns she'd never seen during testing. Arya, how long was I under? 8 hours, 37 minutes, Ambassador. Your vital signs fluctuated significantly. I was about to initiate emergency protocols. Elara removed the circlet, noting with concern that several of its components had physically reconfigured themselves. Run a diagnostic on this. I think the Somnii modified it somehow. As Arya scanned the device, Elara reviewed her notes, tried to make sense of the dream communication. The Somnii weren't hostile. They'd intervened because something about Earth's defense network had alarmed them. Something that could have catastrophic consequences. Ambassador, Arya interrupted. The interface has indeed been modified. Quantum entanglement patterns have been reconfigured, and there appears to be well, there's no other way to describe it. There's a dream program embedded in the system. Elara's head snapped up. What? A set of instructions encoded in a format compatible with human REM sleep patterns. It appears designed to bridge the gap between human and Somnii communication systems. Hope sparked in Elara's chest. They understand. They're trying to help us communicate. She activated the shuttle's communication system. Captain Rourke, this is Ambassador Chen. I have made contact with the Somnii. They are not hostile. They are trying to prevent a catastrophe. Static hissed for several seconds before Rourke's voice came through, tense and professional. Explain, Ambassador. There's something in our defense systems that triggered their intervention. Something dangerous. Elara paused, choosing her words carefully. I need to speak with whoever designed the quantum targeting systems for our orbital platforms. A longer pause. That's classified information, Ambassador. Then unclassify it. Elara snapped, her patience wearing thin. Because in about 60 hours, if I can't convince the Somnii we are addressing their concerns, Earth goes to war with a species that can disable our entire defense network with a thought. And we will lose, Captain. The silence stretched for what felt like eternity before Rourke responded. I will see what I can do. But Chun, be careful. There are political considerations here you may not be aware of. The communication ended, leaving Elara with a growing sense of unease. Political considerations? What wasn't Rourke telling her? Outside the shuttle, the crystal formations pulsed with increased intensity, as if responding to her agitation. Elara stared at the modified neural interface, a decision forming in her mind. Arya, I'm going back under. If I'm not awake in 12 hours, contact Captain Rourke and transmit all data from the interface. Ambassador, I strongly advise. That's an order, Arya. Something's not right here, and I need answers before I run out of time. Elara settled back onto the bunk, placed the modified interface on her head, and closed her eyes. This time, sleep came even more quickly, pulling her consciousness down in a depth she'd never imagined possible. The dream ocean had changed. Where before it had been chaotic and overwhelming, now it possessed structure, a vast architecture of light and thought that Elara could navigate with relative ease. The modified neural interface was working, translating the alien mindscape into something her human brain could process without shutting down. The Somnii appeared as they had before, shifting forms that defied solid geometry, but now Elara could perceive patterns in their movements, rhythms that suggested language. They surrounded her, their curiosity a palpable force that we understand you better now. Came the impression, not in words but in concepts that bloomed directly in her mind. Your technology helps. It is crude, but functional. Elara projected gratitude, then focused on the urgent matter at hand. Why did you disable our defense systems? Images formed in the dream space. Earth's orbital platforms, their quantum targeting arrays active. The visual zoomed in, showing subatomic particles entangled across impossible distances. Then, horror. Those entanglements creating cascading reactions, tearing open the very fabric of space-time. You do not understand what you have built, the Somnii communicated. Your quantum weapons create instabilities, not just destruction of matter, but of the underlying structure of reality. Elara felt cold dread. Are you saying our defense systems could damage? What? The universe itself? Yes. The response came with a gravity that transcended language. We have seen this before. The predecessors destroyed themselves this way. An entire star system gone. The damage to reality took our kind millennia to repair. More images, a civilization much like humanity's, but more advanced. Their weapons systems activated, and then nothingness. A void that wasn't merely empty space, but the absence of existence itself that we have been watching your species for some time. The Somnii continued. You show promise, intelligence, compassion, but also recklessness. You build what you do not fully comprehend that we didn't know, Elara protested. Our scientists were trying to create a defensive capability, not a reality-destroying weapon. Intent is irrelevant to physics, came the reply, tinged with what might have been sadness. The laws of quantum mechanics do not bend to accommodate good intentions. Elara struggled to process the implications. Earth's most advanced defense system was inadvertently designed to tear holes in reality itself. No wonder the Somnii had intervened. Can it be modified? She asked. Made safe? The Somnii's response was cautious. Perhaps. Your species would need to abandon certain principles of the technology. Accept limitations on your defensive capabilities that I need to show my people what you have shown me, Elara thought. They need to understand the danger, The dream space rippled with concern. Direct transfer of this knowledge to unprepared minds would cause harm. Your neural patterns cannot safely process certain concepts. Frustration welled up in Elara. Then how do I convince them? Earth's military leaders won't simply take my word for it. The Somnii conferred among themselves, their forms intermingling in patterns too complex for Elara to follow. Finally, they returned their attention to her. We can modify your interface further. Create a simulation. A simplified version of the knowledge that human minds can comprehend without damage to it. Elara agreed without hesitation. The dream space around her began to shift, the Somnii moving in increasingly complex patterns. Elara felt the neural interface growing warm against her scalp, and bizarre equations scrolled through her mind's eye, mathematics beyond human development, describing quantum relationships that Earth's physicists had only begun to theorize about. Then pain lanced through her consciousness as the Somnii attempted to download information that her brain, even with the interface's help, struggled to process. Too much. She gasped mentally. Too fast. The flow of information slowed, became more measured. The pain receded, replaced by a strange, tingling sensation as the interface adapted, creating buffers and translation mechanisms on the fly. Elara marveled at the technology, both human and Somnii, working in concert to bridge an almost insurmountable cognitive gap. Hours seemed to pass as the information transfer continued, though Elara knew that time moved differently in this dream state. Finally, the flow ebbed, and she was left with a profound exhaustion, but also a clarity of understanding that left her breathless. She knew now, with absolute certainty, that the Somnii were right. Earth's quantum targeting systems, if fully activated, would create cascading entanglement failures that would ripple through space-time itself, potentially creating a tear in reality that could expand outward at the speed of light, consuming not just Earth, but potentially the entire solar system. Did I have to wake up? She realized. I have to warn them. The Somnii sensed her intention. Be careful, Elara Chen. There are those among your kind who might see this power as a weapon to be wielded, not a mistake to be corrected. The ominous warning was the last thing Elara registered before the dream space dissolved around her, and consciousness began to return. She awoke to chaos. The shuttle's emergency lights were flashing, and Arya's voice came through the speakers with uncharacteristic urgency. Ambassador Chen, please respond. The Morpheus has broken orbit and is on approach to the surface. Captain Rourke is demanding immediate extraction. Elara struggled to sit up, her body leaden with fatigue. The neural interface slid from her head, its components now completely reconfigured into something barely recognizable as human technology. What's happening, Arya? The Morpheus detected energy surges from the planet's surface concentrated around your position. They interpreted it as a hostile action. It wasn't hostile, Elara said, her voice hoarse. It was communication. Put me through to Rourke. The captain's face appeared on the screen almost immediately, his expression thunderous. Ambassador, what the hell is going on down there? Our sensors show your neural interface has been completely compromised. Are you under duress? No, Captain. I'm Fina. The Somnii modified the interface to facilitate better communication. Elara took a deep breath. And I have learned something critical. Our quantum targeting systems are fundamentally flawed. If activated at full capacity, they could create a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Rourke's expression hardened. That's precisely the kind of disinformation we expected from an alien species threatened by our defensive capabilities, Ambassador. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. Captain, I'm not simply relaying their claims. The Somnii helped me understand the quantum mechanics involved. The math checks out. She tapped the modified interface. It's all in here, a simulation that can demonstrate the danger. Dr. Chen, your shuttle will be retrieved in 30 minutes. Prepare for extraction. Captain, we need to discuss this. The Somnii aren't a threat. They're trying to prevent a catastrophe. Rourke's eyes narrowed. That's not your call to make, Ambassador. Your mission was to establish communication and determine their intentions. You have done that. Now it's time for the military to take appropriate action. The screen went dark before Elara could respond. She sat in stunned silence for several seconds, then sprang into action. Arya, establish a direct link to Admiral Chandra at Earth Central Command, Priority Alpha. Ambassador, I don't have clearance for override authorization, Chen Omega 79. This is a planetary security emergency. Arya hesitated, then complied. Attempting connection. This may take several minutes, given our distance from Earth relays. Elara grabbed the modified neural interface and her personal datapad. She needed to download as much of the simulation as possible before the Morpheus arrived. The Somnii had given her the key to preventing disaster, and she wasn't about to let military paranoia derail humanity's best chance for survival. Outside the shuttle, the crystal formations had begun pulsing in agitated patterns, their bioluminescence flaring bright enough to cast shadows inside the cabin. The Somnii were aware of the Morpheus's approach, and they were concerned that a S or datapad synchronized with the interface. Elara made a decision. She couldn't risk the military confiscating the technology before she had a chance to present the evidence. Quickly, she created an encrypted data package and set it to transmit to multiple scientific institutions on Earth, including her former colleagues at the Xenolinguistic Institute. Arya, what's the status on that connection to Admiral Chandra? Signal establishing. Estimated time to connection, 7 minutes. Too long. The Morpheus would arrive before she could make her case to someone with the authority to call off potential military action, but a new alert sounded. Proximity warning. Something was approaching the shuttle at high speed. Elara checked the external cameras and saw a dozen crystal formations uprooting themselves from the ground, flowing across the landscape like liquid glass. Arya, seal all entrances and prepare defensive measures. Acknowledged. However, I should note that if these entities are indeed manifestations of the Somnii, our defensive capabilities would likely prove inadequate. The first of the crystal formations reached the shuttle, flowing up against the hull like water. Instead of attempting to breach the vessel, it spread across the surface, covering the viewports with a translucent film. Darkness fell inside the cabin as more crystals joined the first, completely enveloping the shuttle. Elara held her breath, waiting for them to apply pressure, to crush the hull, or attempt to force their way inside. Instead, the crystals began to glow, their light pulsing in complex patterns. The neural interface on her desk responded, its own lights synchronizing with the external glow. They're shielding us, Elara realized, hiding us from the Morpheus. The interface emitted a soft tone, and words appeared on its display. Not in any human language, but in mathematical expressions that somehow conveyed meaning directly to Elara's trained mind, a danger approaching. Weapons active. Hide. Elara understood with sudden clarity. The Morpheus wasn't coming to extract her. It was coming to eliminate the Somnii. Rourke had never intended to give her findings a fair hearing. Arya, cancel that connection to Admiral Chandra. Instead, send a general distress signal to all Earth frequencies. Include the data package I prepared and mark it as first contact critical intelligence. Ambassador, that violates at least 7 protocols and potentially saves billions of lives. Do it, Arya. As the AI complied, Elara grabbed the neural interface and strapped it to her head once more. If she couldn't stop the Morpheus from orbit, perhaps she could reason with the Somnii directly, convince them not to retaliate when the ship arrived. The moment the interface made contact with her skin, unconsciousness claimed her, dragging her back into the dream ocean with violent speed. This time, the dream space was turbulent, storm-like energies rippling through what had previously been a relatively stable environment. The Somnii surrounded Elara, their forms shifting more rapidly than before, projecting anxiety and urgency. Your people come with weapons, they communicated. We have detected quantum targeting systems activating in orbit. I know. Elara responded, desperation coloring her thoughts. They don't understand. They think you are a threat. If those weapons fire, we cannot guarantee control of the aftermath. Reality itself may fracture. Elara's mind raced. Can you disable their systems again, like you did with Earth's defense grid? Not without risk of harm to the humans aboard. Our previous intervention was carefully calibrated over months of observation. We have no such luxury now. Frustration and fear threatened to overwhelm Elara. Then what do? I can't let them attack you, and I can't let them inadvertently tear a hole in space-time. The Somnii conferred, their forms intermingling in that complex dance of information exchange that Elara still couldn't fully comprehend. Finally, They returned their attention to her. There's one possibility, they communicated, but it would require your complete cooperation, and it carries significant risk to your consciousness. Tell me that we can use you as a conduit. Create a direct link between your mind and the minds of your ship's crew. Show them what you have seen. Make them understand the danger in terms their training cannot dismiss. Elara hesitated. You said earlier that direct transfer of this knowledge could harm unprepared minds. Yes. We would need to filter it through your understanding, using your neural patterns as a translation matrix. It would place enormous strain on your consciousness. There's risk of permanent damage to me or to them, to you primarily. Your mind is the interface, the translator. It would bear the full load of the information transfer. Elara considered the alternatives. If she did nothing, the Morpheus would attack, the Somnii would be forced to defend themselves, and humanity might face extinction, either from direct retaliation or from the catastrophic failure of their own quantum weapons. Her own life weighed against billions. It wasn't even a choice. Do it, she commanded. Whatever it takes. The dream space around her shifted, condensing into a focused beam of consciousness with Elara at its center. She felt the Somnii merging their awareness with hers, using the neural interface as an amplifier. Pain lanced through her mind as concepts beyond human comprehension were channeled through her consciousness, stripped down to their essentials, and prepared for transmission. Above, in orbit, the Morpheus powered its weapons systems, targeting the crystalline structures that covered the surface of Somnus Prime. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge, his face grim as he gave the order to fire. And then it hit them, all of them, simultaneously. Every crew member on the Morpheus experienced the same vision. The quantum targeting systems activating, the subatomic particles entangling across impossible distances, and then reality tearing itself apart. Not as an abstract concept, but as a visceral, undeniable truth that bypassed conscious thought and registered directly in the primitive brain as an immediate, existential threat. That on the bridge, weapons officers staggered away from their consoles. The science team cried out in unified horror, and Captain Rourke himself collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by knowledge that rewrote everything he thought he understood about the universe. The weapon systems powered down automatically, their operators physically unable to complete the attack sequence in the dream space. Elara screamed as her mind stretched beyond its limits, serving as the conduit for information that no human brain was designed to process. The Somnii tried to buffer the strain, to protect her consciousness from the worst of the damage, but the sheer volume of data was overwhelming. Hold on, Elara Chen, they urged. It is working. Your people understand. They have stood down. But Elara was barely aware of their words. Her consciousness was fragmenting, pieces of her selfhood scattering across the dream ocean like dust in a solar wind. Memories, emotions, knowledge, all being torn apart by the forces coursing through her mind. The Somnii recognized the danger. As one, they surrounded her disintegrating consciousness, forming a protective lattice of thought. Using techniques developed over millennia of existence, as beings of pure information, they began the delicate process of reassembling what had been broken. You must not be lost, they communicated. You're the bridge. The first true understanding between our kinds. They gathered the fragments of Elara's consciousness, carefully reconstructing her sense of self. It was painstaking work, requiring precision that even they, with their mastery of information, found challenging. Human consciousness was not designed to be disassembled and reassembled. It was a continuous process, not a digital storage system. And yet, slowly, Elara began to coalesce. Her awareness returned in pieces. First basic sensations, then memories, then the higher cognitive functions that made her uniquely herself. What happened? She managed to project, her thoughts weak but coherent. You succeeded, the Somnii responded, their collective consciousness radiating something like pride. The humans understand now. They have requested direct communication. The neural interface? We have repaired and improved it. Your scientists will be able to replicate the technology, create a permanent means of communication between our species. Relief flooded through Elara's reconstructed consciousness. And the quantum weapons? Already being deactivated. Your Captain Rourke has ordered a full stand-down of all such systems throughout your territory. The danger is averted. Elara tried to process this victory, but exhaustion was claiming her rapidly reassembled mind. I need to rest. Yes, sleep now, not in the dream space, but in true unconsciousness. Your mind requires time to heal, to integrate what has happened. Will I see you again? Of course, came the response, tinged with what might have been affection. We have much to teach each other, Elara Chen. You have shown us that humans are capable of more than we had believed possible. And you have shown us that we still have so much to learn, Elara thought as her consciousness began to fade. That the Somnii responded is the beginning of wisdom. 1 year later, the Dream Embassy occupied an unassuming building in Geneva, its architecture deliberately mundane compared to the technological marvels it contained. Within its walls, 20 human diplomats, scientists, and linguists slept in specialized chambers, their minds connected to an improved version of Elara's neural interface. In the dream space, they conversed with the Somnii, learning about quantum mechanics, neurolinguistics, and philosophies developed by beings who experienced reality as information rather than matter. In return, the humans shared art, music, literature, aspects of consciousness that the Somnii, for all their advancement, found fascinatingly novel. Elara stood by the window of her office, watching snowflakes drift down onto the embassy gardens. Her recovery had been long and difficult. For 2 months after the incident on Somnus Prime, she had struggled with aphasia, memory gaps, and migraines that defied treatment. The Somnii had helped, reaching into her dreams to repair the lingering damage, but some scars remained. Dr. Chen, her assistant, appeared at the door. The UN Secretary General has arrived for the demonstration. Elara nodded, straightening her jacket. Thank you, Michael. I will be right down. In the main chamber of the embassy, the Secretary General and a small delegation of world leaders waited, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The Somnii had promised a demonstration of shared dreaming on a scale never before attempted, connecting not just the trained diplomats, but any human who wished to participate in a global moment of shared consciousness. Dr. Chen, the Secretary General, greeted her warmly. A momentous day. Are you certain it's safe? Elara smiled. As certain as we can be. The Somnii have been meticulous in designing the process. The connection will be light, just enough for humanity to understand that they are out there and that they come in peace. And the quantum physics lesson? Is that really necessary? Absolutely, Elara said firmly. People need to understand why certain technologies must remain restricted. The Somnii aren't asking us to abandon our defenses, just to recognize that some powers come with responsibilities that transcend national interests. The Secretary General nodded thoughtfully. Well, I have already agreed to participate. God knows my dreams could use some improvement lately. Laughter rippled through the delegation, easing the tension. Elara checked her watch. It's time. If you will all proceed to the connection chambers. As the diplomats and leaders were escorted to their rooms, Elara made her way to the heart of the embassy. A circular chamber where a crystalline structure, similar to those on Somnus Prime, but smaller, pulsed with gentle light. The neural interface she wore now was permanent, a delicate circlet fused with her neural tissue. Are you ready? She asked, knowing the Somnii could perceive her thoughts through the interface. The crystal pulsed in response, its light synchronizing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. We are ready, came the now familiar sensation of the Somnii's communication. Humanity stands at a crossroads today. They will understand that they are not alone in the universe, and that the greatest frontiers exist not in space, but in consciousness itself. Elara placed her hand on the crystal, feeling the energy flow between them, and they will understand the responsibility that comes with advanced technology. Yes, that most of all. Around the world, billions of humans were settling down to sleep at a coordinated time, curious about the announced shared dream experience. Most expected nothing more than an interesting news story to discuss the next day. What they received instead was a glimpse of reality as the Somnii perceived it. A universe where matter was merely one expression of information, where consciousness could exist independent of biology, and where the quantum underpinnings of existence could be observed directly. They saw the delicate balance of forces that maintained the fabric of space-time and understood, on a fundamental level, why certain Technologies posed existential risks not just to humanity, but to reality itself. And they saw the Somnii not as invaders or even aliens in the traditional sense, but as another expression of the same cosmic consciousness that had given rise to humanity. Different in form and function, but united in the most basic desire to understand and preserve the miracle of existence. In her chamber at the heart of the embassy, Elara Chen closed her eyes and joined the billions of minds experiencing this moment of connection. She felt the Somnii's presence, guiding the massive information transfer with precision and care. And she felt something else, a profound sense of rightness, of purpose fulfilled. Humanity had faced the ultimate test of its maturity as a species. Rather than responding to an advanced civilization with fear and aggression, they had chosen understanding and cooperation. Not without resistance, not without struggle, but ultimately, the better angels of human nature had prevailed as the shared dream reached its conclusion. The Somnii sent one final message, directed not just to Elara, but to every human participant. This is only the beginning. Together, we will dream of wonders yet to come. Elara smiled in her sleep. Humanity, it seemed, had finally found its place in a universe much stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. And she had helped build the bridge that made it possible, one dream at a time.